2 months and 1,600 miles with a 2023 Harley Davidson Lowrider ST. Do I regret buying this bike, or do I still love it? All right, so we are exactly 1,600 miles on this bike, and I have had it for 2 months now. So what are my thoughts on this bike after that time? I did have my Sportster for a lot longer time-wise, but didn't put this many miles on it. I will tell you this, I did not expect to love this bike as much as I do, and let alone put as many miles on this bike already as I have. The only thing I regret is not getting into motorcycles sooner, but this thing has been extremely fun just to take out and ride, whether it's in town or like I'm trying to now is get a little further outside of town, kind of hit some of those backcountry roads. Now I've pretty much kept the engine and performance of this bike bone stock so far. Haven't done a stage 1, still have the stock exhaust and everything. Handlebars are still in the stock setup. I have added a few different things that I'll post a link to a video up here where I go over what I've added so far. But really the main thing that you can see in this picture is the Harley Davidson 10-inch windshield versus the stock 6-inch. But performance-wise, the bike is still set up as it came from the factory. And let me tell you, I honestly don't know if I'll do a stage 1 for a while, just because this bike as is great. There's plenty of power. I mean, the only thing that you'd want to upgrade is the exhaust, so you get a little bit louder sound, but other than that, plenty of torque, and it sounds pretty good when you're getting on it. Let me open up my visor, see if the microphone will actually get the sound of this exhaust as I get on it here. I mean, that sounds pretty good for a stock exhaust. Granted, that's when it's full throttle and everything, but man, this thing has plenty of get up and go, lots of torque. It definitely is way better than my Sportster. As far as comfort goes, for me at 5'10", this bike feels great. I don't feel too cramped up or anything, even with the mid controls. As you can see here, my knees are bent just like that, and they do come up to the tank, but I'm able to lean my legs against the tank. So I don't feel too cramped up. I did take this out one day for like about 5.5 hours of total riding. I didn't feel bad at all. I was obviously tired just because it was a hot day, but other than that, didn't really have any lower back pain, anything like that. I did take several breaks though, so I'd ride to a certain destination, take a break, get some water, because again it was hot. But other than just being tired from the day and riding in the day, felt great. Now I haven't taken this on like an extended long trip, road trip or anything like that. I would like to, but before I do that, I'm waiting on a different windshield, just because this one hits me directly in the helmet, and so I get some head buffeting on the highway, which I didn't get with the stock windshield, but for some reason this one gives me more head buffeting, I think just because of where it's actually hitting the top of my helmet. So I want to wait until I get the clear view windshield to see if it gets rid of that, so that way my helmet isn't going crazy on the highway on a long trip. But just riding around town, I mean, having the bags on this thing makes it super easy and convenient to run errands. Plenty of storage, I think, for me anyway, in these bags. I did add a sissy bar, so I can put a sissy bar bag that I had on my Sportster, add a little bit more storage. I got this handlebar bag up here as well, so put my wallet and sunglasses, everything like that in there. So I mean, for me, this thing has plenty of room. They do make some tour packs. Aftermarket companies makes a tour pack for this thing if you want to do that, so that's an option if you want more storage for, say, a long road trip. I think my favorite thing about this bike, other than obviously the 117 engine and just the absolute power that this thing has, is the cruise control. I mean, I love just setting it and just leaning back and enjoying the ride, especially now that we're getting out of the city. There's gonna be less and less traffic, so I'll be able to just kind of sit back and just enjoy the scenery. The brakes on this thing are awesome as well. 2 disc on the front, plenty of stopping power. I mean, with this much engine power, you definitely want big enough brakes to make you stop. And I've had to do a couple hard stops on this. Nothing like to where I'm like squeezing in the brake too hard or anything, but you know, relatively coming to a quick stop. Traction control on this and ABS helps out with that as well. Traction control more of if the roads are wet, but the ABS does help in case you do have to kind of come to a quicker stop. The gas in this thing is, it's a 5-gallon tank, but I do so much riding on this, I feel like I'm stopping for gas every couple days. But I'm also trying to get up to speed a lot quicker, so I think the way I drive it sometimes kind of reduces my gas mileage, but that's okay. Again, I probably put 120 miles on it on a weekend or more, so definitely don't mind stopping for gas. Need a break anyway, but I think on a long road trip, you'll be able to get more miles out of that if you get the cruise control set and aren't going too crazy over the speed limit. To me, the stock handlebars are just slightly too forward. I wouldn't mind having a kind of like a pullback, maybe a little bit of rise to it. Pretty expensive to do that because you have to add the extended cables and all that, but something I can live with. Again, I'm hunched forward just a little bit, but it's not that uncomfortable. Heck, even when I put it on cruise control, I can just kind of lean back and that's fine. I wasn't sure how I was gonna like this gauge, the small little digital display, but so far I have no problems with it. It gives me all the information I need. I do really love having a gas gauge, because I never knew when I was gonna have that gas light come on my Sportster, so it's really good to have that. It's pretty handy. Got your trip A, trip B, and I usually just keep it on the RPMs, so that way I know where my RPMs are. The suspension on this thing is so much better than my Sportster was. This thing feels like a completely different type of bike to me, which it is. I mean, a Softail compared to the Sportster. This has the inverted front forks and then a single spring underneath the seat. So the suspension to me, coming from a Sportster, feels great. You know, you do feel the bumps, but it's not back braking like it is on the Sportster or any smaller bike like that. So hitting some of these bumps on like this backcountry road, you feel it, but I don't feel like I'm gonna get thrown off the bike or anything. This bike does not come set up for a passenger, kind of like the Street Bob does. So I'm in the process of getting this set up so my wife can ride. I've got the sissy bar with the backrest. I just need to put on passenger pegs and change out the seats. But as you know, everything motorcycle related seems to be super expensive, so that's just a work in progress. I know the fairing on this bike has been a main feature, coming from the R&D of Harley Davidson, coming out with a type of fairing that people want. And so far, I mean, I love this fairing. It keeps the wind off of you just enough so that way you're not getting beat up on the highway. There's no bugs flying at me or anything like that. So to me, the rider pocket, I guess you would say, is pretty good. I'm getting breeze, which you could see on my shirt, so still getting some airflow so I'm not dying of heat. But again, I don't have any experience with any other fairings. I wasn't able to install the Memphis Shades Road Warrior on my Sportster before I traded that in. So let me know if you guys own a Street Glide, Road Glide, or even a Memphis Shades on like your bike and you've ridden this one as well, how it kind of compares. See, this is a part of the riding I love, just out pretty much in the middle of nowhere, no cars around, and just hitting cruise control and just enjoying this awesome bike. The lean angle on this is really good. I have yet to scrape the pegs or anything like that. So I know on my Sportster there were some turns where I was nervous because I knew I was going to scrape. This thing, I haven't had a problem scraping yet. As far as complaints and what I absolutely don't like about this bike, man, I don't know if there are any. I think the one thing which is pretty much standard with all Harleys is where the mirrors are. I kind of have to adjust them a different way so I'm not looking at just my shoulder. But other than that, I mean, of course, everybody would like Harley to just have a good sounding exhaust with the stock bikes, but not always feasible. Now, a lot of people do complain about the clamshell bags in the back. You either love them or hate them. I haven't had a reason to hate them yet. I know it's with the road glides and other bagger bikes where they open from the top. You can actually reach back and grab inside the bag if you need to while you're riding. These you can't, just because of the way they open. And then probably the difference in size, how the one on the exhaust side is shorter than the one on the other side. And that's not as noticeable with the stock exhaust, but once you do like a 2-in-1 or anything like that, you're really going to notice that. To me, not a big deal. I can live with it. Hell, when I'm on the bike, I don't even see the bag, so I mean, doesn't matter to me. People have been swapping them out with different third-party bags, which is fine, but I feel like you paid the extra money for this bike to get it with the bags. Why change them out? I definitely went way further out of town than I was expecting to go. But that's what happens when you're on this bike. You just kind of get lost and just keep riding. Another thing I like about this bike coming from the Sportster is 6th gear. So that makes riding on the highway so much better. The one good thing about this windshield is right now when it is hot and my body's fine, but my face is getting pretty warm in the helmet, I can just lift the visor up and get a nice breeze in my face with not having to worry about bugs hitting me in the eye or anything like that. So that's what I really like about this fairing and windshield. Well, since I ended up riding this way further than I thought, I'm going to pull over here in Lewisburg, Kansas. If you're not familiar with that, it's a small town just outside of Kansas City. So I'm going to let the engine cool off a little bit and I'm going to go hydrate. So while we are off the bike, let's go ahead and just do a roundabout look of it here. So this is my 2023 Lowrider ST. Again, I'll post a link to the video where I've gone over everything that I've done to it so far, but this is it. I guess before we leave, we'll see they have the right gas here. It's always nice when you can get gas without spilling it on your tank. I'm going to go ahead and jump on the highway and we'll take that back for some of the way, see what it's like driving this thing on the highway. And luckily, since we're this far outside of the city, speed limit 75. No problems getting up to speed. So again, with this 10-inch windshield, I am feeling it on the top of my helmet. My helmet is vibrating a little bit. So hopefully with the Clockworks, that is about an inch taller and has a little bit of a recurve. That should hopefully eliminate that. But otherwise, taking this out on the highway is awesome. I'm not getting beaten up by the wind or anything like that. Has plenty of power to get up to speed. Plenty of power to pass traffic if you need to. And I just love this cruise control. If you're looking into getting this bike and are afraid of its size, maybe you are coming from a smaller bike, don't worry about that at all. You'll get used to it right away, and just like any other bike, once you get any momentum going on this thing, you don't feel that weight at all. Man, this thing handles the highway like a champ. It is so smooth and comfortable. So I have no regrets about getting this bike. I know I had a little bit of a dilemma on if I wanted to upgrade from the Sportster already or not, but man, I am so glad I did. I am having such a more fun time riding, more enjoyable, more comfortable. I love it. So if you guys are thinking about possibly getting the Lowrider ST, I definitely think doing it. I know it's a little more expensive than the standard S, but the fairing and the bags, in my opinion, just make it worth it. And then you're not spending the additional money for a bagger bike with all that extra weight that comes with it as well if you want to do some around town riding. So if you are able to test drive this at your local dealership, or Harley does a demo day, highly recommend checking this thing out because it is just an awesome bike and set up to rip around in the city or even tour with this thing. So in my opinion, I think this thing is one of Harley's best bikes that they've come out with in a long time. I'm interested to see what they do with this bike in future models, but if you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you have a Lowrider ST, let everybody know in the comments what you think as well. Look at that, 40 more miles just for this video. Yeah, if you ride with a t-shirt on, you get one hell of a farmer's tan.